That Washington football team is really fucking good.
Everything we do is going to be about winning. Okay, we're going to learn to do things the right way, and that's the only way we're going to do them. Because if it doesn't help us, we're not doing it, man. That's just as simple as it gets. Win the Super Bowl. That's I mean it, too. You know, one of the things that the only reason you become a head coach in this league, in my opinion, is to win. That's it. That's the bottom line. If you do it for any other reason, you're wrong.
Hey, Washington football fans, welcome back. You might want to strap in for this one. Get a snack, a drink, dim the lights. I've been working on this video for 2.5 weeks, and it's going to be a doozy. If you caught my last couple videos, you know I'm of the opinion that we should be in rebuild mode. I think there were some steps we could have taken before the trade deadline, but it looks like our personnel guys are into checkers and not chess, so that didn't happen. So I'm going to go into a few philosophy and game plan changes that, along with free agency and personnel moves, I think could turn this team around starting next year and have an immediate impact. Before I get started, though, if you guys could hit that like and subscribe down below. I really worked hard on this, scouring the 2022 free agents, looking at our players going out, finding upgrades for our weaknesses, looking through the filters of fit, youth, current production, potential development, while, finding options that make sense financially and leave us with cap room for the draft class. Trying to find players that make up a long-term contender with realistic Super Bowl aspiration. Even if you guys don't agree with all the choices, I think, you'd probably give it an A for effort for all, I've gone into on this video. So please, like I said, could you go ahead and hit that like and maybe share the video out if you could, because really put a lot of effort into it. So here it goes. My roadmap for making this Washington football team one of the best teams, top to bottom, in the NFL, and a serious Super Bowl contender for years to come. Before I get into the team building aspect, I want to talk about some overall personnel philosophies. First off, I think more emphasis could be placed on scouting local talent to fill, roster positions on the team, just some depth at least. You've heard me harp on homers in a lot of my videos, but I think they really do represent, at very least, a motivational advantage. And I love that we have several on the team already. I think, there's a lot more talented players and coaches out there from the area that we could possibly bring in. And there's been a lot of local talent missed out on in the past. We should always be on the lookout closest to home. Historically, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, at a time when they needed a quarterback back in '83, missed out on Dan Marino by not looking at home. We've made that mistake a lot too. So we should definitely be looking at the guys playing in the area. And we have 15 schools within the DC, Maryland, and Virginia, in that area. And they've all produced talented players at one time or another at all these Division I schools. You got Virginia Tech, you got the Cavaliers, you got Maryland Terrapins, Navy's even here. You got Liberty, Old Dominion, Richmond, James Madison, William and Mary's even had some players. Georgetown's more of a basketball school, but they got a football program that we could look into. Howard, the same thing. Norfolk State Spartans, Morgan State Bears, Towson Tigers, Hampton Pirates. There's a lot of local schools that we could have our eye to scout some talent. Now, on from that to like our offensive philosophy, I think we're trending in the right direction. There's a lot of things I like about Scott Turner's offense. So far through this season, even through all the injuries to most of our offensive weapons, important pieces to our offensive line going down, and working with, let's be honest, a backup caliber quarterback, you still get an idea of how potent this offense will be when it all comes together under a better quarterback. Scott's offense has all the promising things that work in the modern NFL. And he's shown the intelligence to move the ball down the field himself just by putting defenses in unwinnable situations. So far, the weaknesses and the pitfalls very much have been from the personnel, whether, injuries or just not having a guy he needs. In this video, my suggestion on how to fix it, along with other shortcomings, Scott's done very well with pre-snap motion, jet sweeps out of the shotgun, which is awesome. Along with heavy doses of RPOs, up tempo, and a great mixture of wide receivers carrying out of the backfield and running backs receiving. Like, all the stuff that keeps defenses confused and off balance. All the good things that, modern play callers do. So, with that, we've had Taylor's ability to scramble to pick up yards, but because of injury concerns, we haven't seen many actual design QB runs, QB carries from the RPO. And that's another way he could add a wrinkle and boost the success that I think another quarterback would be able to do. We have a lot of great personnel if they're healthy to pull it off. And, this free agency will give us a chance to add a few pieces along with a quarterback that could rocket this offense to one of the best in the league. My recommendation outside of some personnel additions is to do a lot more of the same that he's doing, along with committing to quarterback carries a bit. I would also look at the run game a little differently. Running back values drop dramatically in the eyes of the league. But fumbles aside, I think Antonio Gibson is a special playmaker. We shouldn't be looking at him as a bell cow type back, though. Instead, we should look at him as a very special offensive weapon that we need to deploy strategically to take advantage of his big playability. I think we should be looking for a large battering ram style running back to play early in the game to soften up opposing defenses. A first half back, if you will. A player like LeGarrette Blount, Jerome Bettis, Mike Allstott, the type of player that blurs the lines between running back and fullback for the first half. I mean, while sprinkling in Antonio Gibson a bit to keep him fresh before committing to him in the second half and take advantage of the defense, because he's a tackle breaker too. I think we could use two players to manufacture a Derrick Henry effect, and I think that could work. You know, outside of AG, we need to find a bruiser. A guy that can be half of a Derrick Henry for a half of football. That's all he needs to do. He doesn't need to be anywhere near as special as Derrick Henry. We just need a dude that can bust him up in the first half like he does before he breaks away in the second half. We just need that guy that's half of him for a half. I think the reason that Henry and the Titans are so dominant when running the ball outside of Henry's freakish nature is the fact that the NFL just isn't equipped to stop the power run game anymore. With nickel and even dime being close to base for a lot of teams, us included, we can follow the Titans and the Patriots' lead and take advantage. You know, with the death of the run-stopping linebacker position, basically, there would be little resistance to a 6'2", 215 glorified safety, you know, passing for a linebacker these days, when a big, 240-pound back comes at him. I also think we need to use Sammis Reyes in a fullback or old school Joe Gibbs style H-back, blocking position, just to get him on the field. I think the coaching staff should be looking for any way possible to get an athlete like him on the field. His strength, athleticism, vicious blocking could be put to use as a lead blocker while he learns the tight end position. We could start him there, and over time start mixing like little leak out plays for short passes to get his feet wet. Ron's already said he's the most physical blocker on the team, and we saw how powerful he was in the preseason and the sheer carnage that can happen when he comes in contact with a defender. You got to think outside the box a little bit and get use out of physical freaks like that as early and often as possible. He could give us a big edge in the run game. Another piece of a punishing power run game, in conjunction with all the confusion of the motion. Not so much like an old school run to set up the pass, more like organized chaos where, you leave defenders battered and confused and just as often burnt by all the speed, pass catching running backs and quarterbacks out of the backfield. It can make the offense confusing and effective. Now, we'll get to the players I think, like we should get to boost the offense later. But let's talk about the other side of the ball. Defensively, the elephant in the room. Listen, I love Jack Del Rio. And in his defense, I think most of the defense's problems come from lacking personnel. Last year, we looked destined to steamroll the league. And now we've got a rude awakening week in and week out this season. We're getting pressure, but we aren't getting home. And it goes without saying, this defense should be performing way better than it is. I could almost blame, this all on the fact that we signed the wrong free agents, kept the wrong linebackers, let the right ones go, which would fall on the personnel department and Ron. But Jack's lack of any kind of play calling adjustment is a big problem. It crushes the faith I had in the fact that, he was one of the top defensive minds in the league, and it brings into question his ability to coach a successful defense. I've concluded we only have one choice if we want to get this defense where it's supposed to be, and that's to bring in some new blood. With how this league's looking, always looking for the next young offensive genius, being a team that has already invested a boatload of draft capital on building a strong defensive identity, I think we should take a crack at the next up-and-coming defensive coach. There's a lot of interesting guys at the collegiate level. You got, Luke Fickell at Cincinnati. You got Brent Venables at Clemson, Kirby Smart at Georgia, Alex Grinch of Oklahoma, Derek Mason of Auburn, Jim Leonard in Wisconsin, Pete Golding at Bama. The list goes on and on. But it's hard to pry college coaches away for a head coaching job, let alone a DC job. I think we have a better option here in the NFL anyway. I think we should be picking from the Belichick tree. His coaches haven't had the best results as head coaches, but a lot of great defensive minds sprouted from his tree. And the most recent, I think, is a perfect fit for us. You know how I love homers. Combine that with his potential, and I think bringing in Gerard Mayo could be a huge move. Former All-Pro, Super Bowl winning linebacker. Mayo's gone from linebacker to linebacker coach, just like his former teammate Mike Vrabel, and many, many other successful NFL coaches. Ron and Jack, linebackers turned linebacker coach turned head coach, defensive coordinator, then head coach. Mayo, he's started out under the Belichick coaching tree as the Patriots linebacking coach. That, along with being born and raised in Virginia, just makes it make a lot of sense to me. He's got the pedigree, he's got the mind, and he's one of our guys. Let's strike while the iron's hot. Go ahead and give him that DC job, and get it done before somebody else snatches him up. With that out of the way, I think we need to figure out what to do coverage-wise. I think our personnel, we need to pick them accordingly. Like, we made a big mistake going into this year. Like, our personnel says press man coverage, but we're firmly bound into this cover 3 zone deal. And like I said, that's going to play a major role in what secondary pieces we should go after. I think there's certainly some guys in free agency and in the draft that could fill the holes and get this defense to where it's supposed to be. The way NFL offenses are getting closer and closer to college offenses, I think we should adjust to that and we could rocket this defense forward by committing to some collegey position uses. You know, having a DC like Mayo that's learned firsthand from Belichick how to stay ahead of offenses, you know, along with playing more nickel like the Patriots did last year, would be a nice step. Along with, you know, a lot of dime. And with that, I think we should be adding more speedy inside linebackers. Like, I think that's a must. I think in the nickel formation, I think an interesting wrinkle could be, instead of taking out the Sam, we take out the weak side linebacker, leave the Sam in, and have a Sam linebacker that's like the bandit position in college, you know, like that outside, like 3-4 outside linebacker, Sam linebacker type that rushes the passer and can drop in the coverage. A bandit makes a lot of sense too with how we were flirting with 5-man fronts. You know, that 3-4 outside linebacker Sam mold where he could drop into coverage and then join the line as the 5th man in the front pass rushing would be great. So, and you know, it would add a lot of confusion for opposing offenses that I think would lead to sacks and turnovers. So, a bandit position player, linebacker / pass rusher coverage guy is something we should be looking at. Now, Shaka Toney is a guy on the team right now that could fill that role very well. And I'll talk later on about some free agents I think would do really well there. And one of the most important things we need to improve in the defense is the quality of our linebacker position. I know we're committing to more nickel and dime, so we'll only have 1 or 2 of them on the field most of the time. But we need quality at that position nonetheless. I think Jamin Davis has a ton of potential, you know, to develop into a high-level linebacker. But Holcomb and Hudson are just solid rotational pieces at best, which is fine. You definitely need those kind of guys. But we need more talented linebackers on the field for the majority of the reps. Even with the amount of nickel we play, we need more than 4 linebackers on the roster. I think we need to dress 5 every week, have at least 6 on the roster, with a couple more on the practice squad. You know, just look at the difference health and depth at the linebacker position has made for Dallas from last year to now. Adding 2 quality linebackers and getting another one back healthy has helped bring everything else together and is boosting the strength of a very average offensive line for Dallas. So, with all that said, let's get on to personnel here. Talk about our free agents. We have 25 contracts ending with the season. That's almost half the roster. This is a great opportunity for a much needed roster overhaul. You know, there's some solid starters with contracts ending, but some of the young talent and free agency, I think this would be a great opportunity to get younger, cheaper, and better. Of the 25 players whose contracts are ending, I think we should only bring back 1 player for sure, and that's Tim Settle. No matter how much the defense is disappointed, Settle hasn't. The lifeblood of this team is still the strength and depth of the defensive line. This is a local kid, defensive tackle, a very important part of the strength of our defensive line. And he needs to be brought back. Another player you could make the argument we should bring back is DeAndre Carter. I actually think Carter has earned, wide receiver 4 or 5 so far this season. He's a perfect option to mix into the backfield like Curtis Samuel. But, Carter will be 29 next year. I'm not saying that's old. But we also have a chance to get younger at the position, along with bringing in, surprise, surprise, a local talent. I'm going to touch on that later, though. I'm going to touch on that player later. But I think Carter's played great so far this year. We'll see, how he finishes out. I think he's earned himself a solid payday if he continues on the way he's playing. I just don't think it should be from us. I think there's a cheaper, younger option out there, and like I said, it's a local kid who still has a lot of potential and a lower price. Now, we actually find ourselves in a very convenient situation going into free agency. We have a perfectly timed roster purge with 25 almost entirely expendable players, contracts ending at possibly the perfect time. We go into free agency in need of a rebuild, and luckily, we enter with the 4th most cap space in the league at $63 million, which is already a great spot. But with 3 restructures or cuts if needed, and a trade that I'll recommend later, and cutting one backup, who, the Shazer Everett, I'm just going to say it now, the Shazer Everett, get him gone. He's like $4 million. Get him out of here. If we do that, we'll end up between depending on restructure or cut, we'll end up between 78 and 85 million. And at 85 million, we're second most cap space in the NFL. And it couldn't happen on a better season. Like, this is the perfect season for this to happen. Most free agencies, there's usually a few solid players, and they get their value inflated by the scarcity, of available players at that position. Well, because of the COVID-reduced cap last season, a lot of players took 1-year deals to try to cash in next season. That, along with different stars aligning from solid draft classes, free agency is flooded with tons of great talent. To the point that it might actually lead to buyers having a bit more leverage, and considerably lower in prices. It's just supply and demand. There's a lot of supply. And we can take some giant leaps ahead in a rebuild because of all this, and give our roster a huge boost top to bottom. I'm talking top 5 roster in the league on both sides of the ball with the proper move. Looking at the free agents, how we've played, who's left on the roster, you get a good idea of the positions of need. Offensively, we need to replace Sheriff and Lucas. We need a 3rd down receiving back to replace McKissick. We need an actual effective, tall, high point wide receiver to replace Cam Sims and fill a hole Ron's been trying to fill for 2 seasons now. We need a high-end tight end too to pair with Logan and replace Ricky Seals-Jones, and to cover if Logan gets hurt again. Because, good God, look what's happening to our offense without him now. And in my opinion, like I recommended, a first half bruising running back. Defensively, we need multiple high-end linebackers to upgrade the position and replace the linebackers leaving. We need a truly talented, rangy free safety to replace and upgrade McCain. And a top-tier corner that actually fits the scheme. A top-tier nickel or two. Slot inside corners. And, general development and depth for the cornerback position inside. I think we need a Sam linebacker / outside linebacker banded hybrid that can cover and pass rush. We also need a kicker very, very badly. And with my recommendation of letting DeAndre Carter go, we need a returner, as I've mentioned. So, finally, let's kick off addressing our needs in free agency on the offensive side of the ball. 2022 free agent targets here. Starting out with quarterback. I've been out on the 2022 draft class of quarterbacks since week 3 of this season. I thought these guys had to take a big step up to impress me, and they've all done the opposite. And after watching what Scott Turner, is doing for the offense, I realized it's a perfect offense for 2 of the free agent quarterbacks out there. So I've been gung-ho that we need to sign them. Recently, King Scorch, he just started a YouTube channel, by the way. Check him out. King Scorch with a K. He asked me in the comments, if those 2 quarterbacks were redrafted in this class, where would they go? And I think that puts this into even better perspective than I could have originally. And why they are a better choice than risking a high first round pick on any of these quarterbacks. And first off, the first quarterback that I think we should go after in free agency is Marcus Mariota. He's only 28 years old. If Marcus Mariota was coming out in this draft class, he would blow the rest of the prospects out of the water. He would not only be the first quarterback taken, he would be the number 1 overall pick. But he originally went number 2 overall. He would definitely go number 1 overall in this. He's a high character guy, intelligent, great work ethic, great leadership, lightning fast processing and release, freak athlete, absolute rifle for an arm, special off-platform, and off-schedule playmaking. Then, Heisman, Maxwell, Manning, Johnny Unitas Golden Arm, Davey O'Brien, AP Player of the Year winner. He crushed it coming out. Like, he would blow the rest of these guys out of the water coming out of the draft. On top of that, he's 6'4", 225 pounds, runs a 4.5 140. He was a 9.94 RAS score. He was a 3-year starter in college who had a total of 10,796 yards, 105 touchdowns to 14 interceptions for 171.8 passer rating with 2,237 rushing yards with a 6.6 yards per carry average and 29 more rushing touchdowns to go with that. His last college season, he threw for 4,454 yards, 42 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions for a 1.817 passer rating and a 90.8 quarterback rating. When Marcus Mariota came out, the big question that led to his toughest obstacle was, can he be an NFL quarterback? So in Tennessee, they spent 5 years of his career trying to slow him down and make him some type of traditional NFL quarterback. While they were doing that, the league changed, and they figured out that Marcus Mariota is the kind of guy you want at quarterback in the modern NFL. But by that time, because of them trying to make him something he wasn't, the league wrote him off. But all that talent is still there. The special ability, and now he has all that experience and seasoning to go with it. In Washington, he would finally have the weapons fast enough to take advantage of the kind of tempo Mariota can play with. I still believe in Marcus Mariota. He just turned 28 years old. He's 10 years younger than Aaron Rodgers, 5 years younger than Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Andy Dalton, 2 years younger than Derek Carr and Jimmy Garoppolo. He's a year younger than Bridgewater and Wentz, a couple months younger than Dak Prescott. He's only 2 years older than Pat Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and Baker Mayfield. So this is a guy that could be the answer for a long time. We have a chance to take advantage of all the work everyone else has already put in. The high draft pick spent, the development, the time, the experience. His career has been a result of what it means to be a number 2 overall pick. It means you go to a shit team. He had no weapons, absolutely no stability. 3 head coaches, 4 offensive coordinators, 4 quarterback coaches, and a broken leg, all in his first 5 seasons, and still managed a playoff win. Since then, he's had a chance to spend a season and a half refining his game in a low-pressure situation with John Gruden, who, all shitty personality traits aside, is a great quarterback developer. We have a chance to bring in a generational talent at the quarterback position that has been squandered by a horrible situation. We can give him everything he needs to fulfill his potential and end up with one of the best comeback stories of all time. Joe Theismann was 8 years into his career and 29 years old before he became our franchise quarterback. Steve Young over for the 49ers, very similar career trajectory. The NFL expects too much too soon from players with the most potential without, a thought given to the situation they enter as a high draft pick. They just expect them to carry everything. Mariota was and is a special player, but even a special player needs help and time to reach their peaks. He's had the time, and we are in the position to give him the help he needs. We need to sign Marcus Mariota in free agent. Along with Marcus Mariota, Mitch Trubisky. I know. 27 years old, another former number 2 overall pick. Little less than a year younger than Mariota. while you can look at his quarterback class in hindsight and think that it was dumb to take him over his draft mates, you can't say that about this class. Like this draft class is not great. Trubisky is like Matt Corral from this class. Matt Corral's probably the best, like, ready, like, quarterback prospect in this draft. And Mitch Trubisky is like Corral, but better at everything. Better arm, better athlete, bigger. You know, and since he's been in the NFL, he's made it to the playoffs twice, despite a horrible coach in Matt Nagy. He also fits this offense great, being able to do everything Taylor Heineke does, you know, to make it productive, but at an elite level when it comes to throwing the ball and his, like, physical attributes, and without the durability concerns. You know, he's really special off platform, you know, throwing on the run, running the ball. You know, he can change his arm angles and pass around defenders. And he has a beautiful deep ball when he actually lets it go. You know, he has a lot of great traits that just weren't nourished in his time in Chicago. Just like Mariota, Mitch had a shitty situation, but now he's spending a season in a stress-free position as a backup with a coaching staff that unlocked Josh Allen's potential. So he's got quarterback gurus he's working with at his leisure right now too. And just like Mariota at the beginning of the season, you know, we tried to trade for Mitch before the deadline here. So we've shown interest in both of these quarterbacks, and they will be free agents at the end of the year. So, hey, either one of these guys could be a possible franchise quarterback. I would definitely lean more towards Mariota, but, you know, Trubisky is a franchise quarterback too, in my opinion. And at the very least, these guys could be great bridges for like when we draft like a mid-round pick, like Grayson McCall to develop. So my question is, why not both? As of the trade deadline, like I said, we've shown interest in both of them. Like last year, we wanted Mariota to trade, or at the beginning of this year, we wanted to trade for him. Couldn't get it done. Before the trade deadline, we tried to get Trubisky. So we've shown interest in both these guys. And we couldn't get them through trades, but we can get them both now through free agency. And I think both should be brought in to compete. You know, they're both currently making less than $4 million a year. So it's safe to say we can get it done for $8 million combined. At worst, we'll give them $10 million that Fitzpatrick's making. $5 million apiece to come here and battle it out. And then that way we also have a high quality backup in case of a late season injury. Like Mariota's had a couple seasons ended with injury. If you got Mitch Trubisky waiting there, another starter quality quarterback, then it puts us in a Philly type position for a Super Bowl push with the backup if something bad happens. So I think that's a no-brainer. They both need to be signed and compete for starter. The other one gets the backup job. Sorry, Taylor. I love you, guy, but good luck, pal. After quarterback, I think the immediate need is replacing these offensive linemen. I think, this is a perfect time for a youth movement. I think Cosme takes care of the immediate need for a franchise left tackle. I think he's going to move over and replace Leno. I think Sadiq Charles could be our right tackle or right guard of the future, but I think he might be best served as a replacement for Lucas, maybe as a swing, or maybe for Schweitzer as like a swing guard. There are some free agents that we could sign that, not only fill vacancies, but upgrade the roster with youth and athleticism and a cheaper price to boot, which isn't hard with what we've paid Sheriff over the last 2 seasons. And I think we should also be looking for some high-end athletes for the guard positions to really help, with the progression of our RPO and sweep game. We've been lucky in the last 10 years to have had 3 or 4 different coaches that all have managed to get the best out of some unexpected offensive linemen. That's the one good thing that, has at least continued, if not gotten a little better under Ron Rivera. So I'm confident that we don't have to go with the best guy as much as we need to go with the best fit. And then just let the coaches work their magic. Speaking of not going with the best guy, Virginia kid Wyatt Teller would be a great option. He's probably the best option. But he also comes with the biggest price tag. And I think, there are some better options out there because of the price mainly. And, some athleticism. So, while I love Wyatt Teller, I love a solid homer. This guy is from right down the street from my aunt in Bealton. But, yeah, sadly, pass on him because I think there's a much better fit. And I think the best possible fit might be Connor Williams, 25-year-old guard from Texas in college, but he's currently on the Cowboys. And I think he'll be considerably cheaper than Teller and Sheriff. He turns 25 next year. Plus, stealing a high-end starter from a division rival is huge. Paying Dak put Dallas in a rough spot trying to retain any free agents. They're going to be $11 million over the cap next year. And he's more than likely going bye-bye. So hopefully we're the team that says hello. Reuniting this 9.68 freak Williams with his old Longhorn buddy 9.99 freak Sam Cosmi could give us the most athletically gifted side of an offensive line in the NFL. A big part of offensive line success is the comfort between players. So bringing in a big free agent upgrade that already has chemistry with our future left tackle would be a huge production multiplier. And it could really help on Cosme switching side. I think Connor Williams needs to be one of our top targets. Switching Cosme over to the left side and sticking Williams right there with him and switching Flowers over to Sheriff's old spot. It just makes a whole lot of sense. On a little darker tone here, with Roulier's injury and the fact that Tyler Larson's 32 or something, and his contract ends at the end of the season, I think, we need to look into a solid, near starter quality center because he might play, might have to play. And there's honestly a perfect candidate to replace Larson as Roulier's backup. And he also has solid, center and guard versatility. So he would actually allow us to replace Larson and Schweitzer. So we could use the value that Wes Schweitzer has gained in his time here and then trade him away for some draft capital. And then, land a solid, flexible piece for our interior also line, our offensive line, and this guy. Turning two players into one roster spot with higher potential, with our staff, and getting younger. That player, I think, is Austin Corbett. He's going to be 26 next year. Center guard. He's a solid 8.42 RES score. Former 33rd overall pick. He's a guy that could step in and provide the smallest possible drop off if Roullier gets hurt. Like, we're barely going to dip in production between the two. And he gives us starter quality depth throughout the entire interior offensive line. Like I said, replaces two players, lets you gain some trade capital and gives you an extra roster spot, which is huge. And, one of the most tangible upsides to this position flex thing Ron is preaching is getting that extra roster spot. I think our coaches could get even better play out of this guy than he's already exhibited, and he's done pretty well once he got past early injuries. And I kind of feel like 26 to 30 is kind of that prime, so he's about to enter his prime as an interior offensive lineman, and this could be a big time signing if we can make this happen. Along with that, some cheap interior offensive line depth pieces out there. Like, I'm not saying we should sign this guy or whatever. I'm just saying, like, he's out there if we miss out on some other guys. I just think it's, just some solid depth. And that's Will Hernandez, who turns 26 next year, 8.84 RAS. He's a great athlete. He was a violent road grading blocker and one of my favorite linemen after Nelson in that draft. I mean, he went 34th overall, but he fell prey to the Giants' shitty development of offensive linemen. And he'd be super cheap, for depth, and could be the next fix a giant like Flowers was. So Will Hernandez, if we miss out on, somebody like Corbett, which would suck, but we could bring in Hernandez for some quality, some developmental depth. Also, I think there's a bunch of solid offensive tackles in free agency, but they're all hovering around that 30-year-old range. There's a bunch of those guys that could be solid, but I still think youth is the best option. And there's one high-end guy that kind of checks all the boxes, and that's Cam Robinson. He'll be 26 next year, offensive tackle. Former 34th overall pick out of Alabama. He's a ton of potential. He was regarded as, the first or second best offensive tackle prospect in the 2017 draft, which, admittedly was a little slim on offensive line talent, but 6'6", 320 pounds. He used his enormous size, strength, length, along with solid technique to hold his own against a murderer's row of future NFL pass rushers in college. Most notably, Myles Garrett, that he went toe-to-toe with and did really well in college. Now, going into his second season, he tore his ACL, and it cost him 16 games. Otherwise, he's played every game of his rookie contract. And he hasn't had the best coaching staff since he's been in the league, being stuck in Jacksonville. So I think he can maybe fly a bit under the radar because he hasn't lived up to his drafting. And bringing him here, I think will boost him hugely. And I also think what we need to do is transition him to right tackle, where he would be absolutely top tier. But Cam Robinson's definitely a guy we should go after. Here's a little sleeper pick here. Roderick Johnson. We could actually pick this guy up now. I think he's on Miami's practice squad. This is a guy that was comped to Morgan Moses coming out in the draft. I think he's, he has all the potential to turn into like a high quality, long time right tackle for us. If not, he could be the perfect swing tackle to replace Lucas. He's 6'7", 310 pounds with elite 36-inch arm length. He's shown, great ability as a run blocker. He only really struggles from a technique problems in pass sets. It's not a strength or like even anchor stuff. It's just little technique hiccups. And I think any solid O-line coaches could help him. I mean, he hasn't had any so far. He was cut by the Browns 2 seasons before they landed our guy, Bill Callahan. And that could have probably made him a Pro Bowler. If he would have got to work with Callahan, he probably would have been a Pro Bowler. Instead, he spent 2 years with the Texans before finding his way to the Dolphins practice squad. Like, this guy hasn't even been in the same room as a decent offensive line coach in his young career. So, like I said, not a serviceable O-line coach anywhere. I think we could at least get Leno or Lucas type performance out of him, if not better. Because of his he's way younger, better athletically. He's gonna come with a super cheap price. Like, this is a kind of guy like, man, they're gonna see him on Monday Night Football or something. Like, where'd they get this guy? Like, he looks like a all pro out. So definitely a guy we should look at. Moving on, I don't think, wide receiver is much of a concern for us. I think when everybody finally gets healthy, we'll be in an amazing spot. Terry, Curtis, Diami shown flashes. Then we got running backs with receiving potential. Our tight ends, with a possible addition at tight end as well. We should be pretty potent in the wide receiver department. That said, this free agency has some pretty crazy names hitting the market. You got Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, Allen Robinson, Mike Williams, even some lesser players, but still a little buzzworthy. You got Juju, you got Christian Kirk, you got Antonio Brown. And they're all going to draw a lot of attention in free agency. This flood of talent should help lower the price a lot of these guys, and below the huge names. And that should help, get a great deal on players that, would usually cost considerably more. That said, the one thing we are missing in the wide receiver room, the one thing Ron has wanted since he got here, after 2 seasons, he still doesn't have it, a dependable, tall, high point, contested catcher, red zone threat. Cam Sims just hasn't been it. His contract is over. He might find his way back to our practice squad. But we still need a huge catch radius guy. I mentioned Mike Williams is a free agent, and he would be great, but he's one of the big money names. You also got a free agent duo from Denver in Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton that would fit the bill. But Tim's not quite high enough tier, and he's a little older. And Sutton will probably still draw a hefty price. I think the best fit for our team, and given his situation, probably the cheapest out of the really good guys, DJ Chark from Jacksonville. 25 years old, 6'4", 200 pounds, 4'3", 440 speed. He's from wide receiver U, LSU. 6'4", go up and get it. And a guy that, like I said, has that 4.3 speed to match our group. The fact that he hasn't been more consistent production-wise, and his season-ending ankle injury, I think will make him far more accessible for us with this flood of free agents. It's going to bring his price down. Like I said, it's just supply and demand. And I think we should take advantage of that. He's definitely the missing piece of this group. And I think he'd really open our offense like never before. For whatever quarterback we end up with. Hopefully one of the two I mentioned. Or both of the two I said. Adding his size along with his speed, that his speed matches or exceeds Terry and Curtis, and that will undoubtedly give us the most potential in passing it. It would give us one of the most potent passing attacks in the NFL. Chark is like everything we hoped Cam Sims could be. Tall, huge catch radius, downfield burner that makes impossible catches. He's the perfect piece to complete this group of speed demon pass catchers. Adding him to Terry, Curtis, and Diami should launch us into the conversations of best groups in the NFL with Dallas and Tampa Bay. And lets us compete with our division that's pretty stacked all around with wide receiver talent. Like of course, Dallas is nuts. New York's crazy deep with wide receivers. Even Philly's stacking wide receivers out there. Adding him to this group puts us in the conversation. That's a big target for it. I think we also take this chance to replace DeAndre Carter, like I'd mentioned, with a younger local prospect, Joe Reed, Virginia kid that stayed home for his college ball as a Cavalier. He won the Jet Award for the best returner in college football. He's also been a pretty good wide receiver. He was drafted in the 5th round by the Chargers in 2020, and he's been on their practice squad. He has that same 4.47 speed that Carter has, but in a 6 foot, 220 pound package, like an Antonio Gibson type package, as opposed to Carter's 5'8", 175 pounds, or whatever he is. I think he could fill like a flex, running back, wide receiver, kick returner role. And he's got tons of talent, tons of potential and versatility. And he's a local guy. He's a perfect fit. I think this is a guy we should definitely snatch up. He shouldn't be hard. He's on a practice squad. We should definitely sign Joe Reed. Next place of improvement on the offensive side of the ball is the tight end position. Now, I believe that John Bates and Sammis Reyes can develop into the future of this team at the tight end position. And I think we should be using Reyes as a fullback right now. But in the meantime, since we're carrying four tight ends, we need to replace Ricky Seals-Jones, whose contract's ending anyway. with a high-end talent to match Logan Thomas as a pass catcher. Logan Thomas's injury this season has showed us how important he is to offensive production, especially red zone. You know, we really need a passing threat that can step in if he gets hurt. If he doesn't get hurt, we end up with deadly 2 tight end sets. So it's just a must-have situation. Luckily for us, this free agency is actually packed with options. Thinking back to 2 years ago when we were frothing at the mouth at the thought of Austin Hooper because of how bare the tight end pool was is crazy. Everything from star tight ends to solid, dependable all-around guys. The market is flooded this season, so prices should be reasonable, even for the best guys. Hell, Logan Thomas is the only tight end in our tight end one in our division under contract. With, the work our tight end coach has done with Logan and with bringing along Reyes and Bates, I have no doubt we could make a diamond out of a lot of these underperformers. Or, solid but not special guys, he can make them better too. I'd prefer one of the high potential prospects that haven't hit their peak yet. Dallas Goedert probably gets most of the attention if he isn't extended. But then we also got Evan Ingram and David Njoku, both being former first rounders with high-end athleticism. They're going to get a lot of attention. Evan will probably command a bit more with his freaky speed and, big-time production. I think his 4.42 speed at the tight end position could be really fun in our offense, but he has drops and injury concerns, with a probably steep price, so I don't think he's the guy for us. David Njoku probably still could command a decent price, and he's definitely a bit of an underachiever so far, so he'd be a decent option, but I think 2 players could provide the perfect match to give us a dual threat, to give us dual tight end ones instead of a clear 1 and 2. And honestly, which player I would pick out of these 2 is almost strictly on the contract, like what they're going to cost. I mean, I do have a slight preference because of one having a clean bill of health throughout his career so far. But otherwise, I think Pete Honer can turn both of these guys into 1,000-yard tight end beasts. And first off, the perfect tight end perfect pick for us, Mike Gesicki. He would be the perfect piece. He would be my first choice if I weren't looking to add, so many other important pieces. But I think, he might carry the heaviest price tag. I would definitely check to see that price range, though. Because if we could land him, I would definitely compare it, to see, like, if it's in the same range. I think Gesicki is a special tight end. His season with Fitz showed that, it showed just a little bit of the awesomeness he's capable of. 6'6", 247 pound, freak athlete, 9.95 RAS monster, 41-inch vert, 4.5 140. If his price is within $2 million of Logan's, then it's a done deal. Like, if he's only $2 million more than Logan, I'd get him flat out. But I have a feeling that it's probably going to be a little bit more than that. So the other option, we've been clamoring for this guy for trades for a couple years now. O.J. Howard. He'll be 26, 6'6", 251 pounds, 4.5 140, 976 RAS with a 30-inch vert. Top 20 pick from Alabama. Like I said, we have been praying for a O.J. Howard trade here for years now. You know, he hasn't quite played up to his projection, mostly because of injury, but he's still averaging 14 yards of reception so far throughout his career. You know, he missed 12 games last season from a ruptured Achilles, which is a vicious injury, but so far this season, he's looking pretty good. O.J. Howard, you know, had so much potential coming out because of his athleticism that I think he's kind of skated by on it a little bit. He's just a couple ticks below Sammis Reyes from a physical standpoint, with the same potential but a lifetime more of tight end experience. I think Pete Honer could turn him into one of the best tight ends in the league, like he was supposed to be. And he's probably going to go for a price that is a lot closer to the one we're paying for Logan. And I think that could be a steal. So O.J. Howard or Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki makes you feel a little bit better because he doesn't have the injury concerns. But O.J. Howard's got that potential to be one of the best in the league. And here's my last offensive position here. And possibly some changes at running back. You know, we're only carrying 3 on the roster this year. But we could look to bump that up for next season with, you know, to have a rotation to keep guys fresh. McKissick being a free agent next year. He'll also be 29. You know, he's playing great, but there are some younger possibilities with, you know, higher end players hitting the market. And that could give us, you know, even more explosive, you know, third down or change of pace backs. I think Jared Patterson will develop to a solid spell back, but you still got to take any chance you can to make the team better. And as long as it makes financial sense, don't overpay for a running back, but check these guys out and see, you know, what we could bring them in for. First off, the perfect, I think, replacement for J.D. McKissick would be Chase Edmonds. Turns 25 next year, 4.55 40. Like, perfect replacement for J.D. McKissick. They do so much of the same stuff, and Edmonds just is younger and does it a little better. And he's going to come with a relatively high price, and that's if he'll even leave Arizona at all. So while I think he can make a great option, I don't think he's the guy. But the perfect combination of availability, ability, price, and possible desire is Matt Breida, who turns 26. Breida turns 26 next year. He's got that 4.38 game-breaking speed. He's got a crazy 42-inch vert. He's a freak athlete. You know, he hasn't handled nearly the reception load McKissick has, but neither did JD before he got here. He's a RB3 at Buffalo, and he's not seeing much of the field. So I think that'll lead to him staying in pretty good shape, but being pretty healthy next year from not having any wear and tear on his body. You know, Breida has had success on the field when he's been given the chance. He's just been moved on from. I think this guy could be J.D. McKissick 2.0 with clear pass catching ability. He could build on an insane physical ability that JD didn't possess. JD did not have that 4.3 kind of speed. You know, he took the league minimum this year and so far isn't seeing the field. So that could be a huge value for us. And I think this would be the perfect guy to replace JD McKissic, Matt Breida. Another option, if we can't get him for whatever reason, is Puka Williams, 22 years old. Puka went undrafted this year and ended up on the Bengals practice squad. And there they've been trying to convert him to wide receiver because he's small. And he's got that 4.36 speed. And like I said, he's been working on an already decent receiving game. So he's a guy that could be a very dangerous receiving threat out of the backfield. He might lack the size for blocking responsibilities of a third down back, but his explosiveness could be worth a look if we can't land or for some reason decide against Matt Breida. Breida. Not sure. In addition to a replacement for McKissic, I think we need that battering ram kind of a guy. Not so much a short yardage back, but like I said, a first half back. You know, to simulate that Derrick Henry effect. Beating up defenses in the first half, but also, you know, being productive at the same time, not just a yard or two at a time, before putting a fresh Antonio Gibson in, who's already a strong tackle breaker himself with blazing speed. I think it would also keep all the backs relatively healthy and low wear. They're only playing a half a game. So I got a few guys that could still get production on the ground while being, you know, powerful, punishing runners. And I think we'd get a lot more out of these guys. You know, telling them you're only playing a half a game, leave it all on the field. Don't worry about second half gas tank. Just go out there and bash them up. And I think these guys could be had for reasonable prices. And, you know, would be perfect parts of the game plan with the right coaching. But James Conner is a guy I think is pretty much perfect for this role, with the way he already punishes defense at the end of every run. But just like his teammate Chase Edmonds, I think he might not want to leave Arizona, and his price might be a little on the higher end. You know, because, you know, he's so good and he's going to cost that. So I think there might be better options out there than James Conner, but he's definitely the type of back we're looking for. The guy I think would be perfect, a guy out there in need of a second chance, Bo Scarborough. He'll be 25 next year. Running back, 6'1", 235. Everybody, including me, had this guy pegged as the next big-time Alabama running back coming out. Everybody was expecting Derrick Henry Part 2, but he just didn't have that kind of speed or that special stamina that Henry uses to dominate. He doesn't need to be a full Derrick Henry, just a half of Derrick Henry for a half, and just smash up defensive players for the first half of football. He's shown this ability when he's been given the chance. He did on a career game against us, where he mollywopped Landon Collins and practically knocked his head off. Helmet flying, Landon Collins all dazed. He's definitely got the traits. You know, one of his best, you know, this is a guy that has all the best traits of a first half meat tenderizer. And he'd be cheap. Like, this is a guy that's got like a LeGarrette Blount type written all over him. Just let him go out there and bash defenses. Because, guys like that are going to get banged up. We're definitely going to have to stash some guys like them on the practice squad. Dante Foreman, 25 years old, 6'1", 236. He's another big back that could be focused into bruising, a bruising first half back. We've actually brought him in a couple of times for workouts, even just like last week or something. So he might be a guy we already have interest in. I think Bo is the better option, but with a game plan in mind, Foreman should definitely have a practice squad spot. Then there's a couple other guys here: Cameron Petaway, Kari Blasingame, Ryan Nall, Elijah Hood, Elijah Penny, Quadri Olison, Javarian Franklin. All these are bruising, big running back, / fullback types that we should try to stash in case, our guys get banged up. So, in a perfect offseason with all the players we have going out, I think bringing in Marcus Mariota, Mitch Trubisky, Connor Williams, Austin Corbett, Cam Robinson, Roderick Johnson, DJ Chark, OJ Howard, Matt Breida, Bo Scarborough, those would be the perfect offensive addition. That's the offensive side of the overhaul. Then we got kickers. It's no secret we need a good kicker. I was in favor of keeping Hopkins until the end of the season. I told everybody there was nothing better out there. And Chris Blewett proved me right. Free agency next year has one sure shot option. But if we can't land him, I still got 3 guys we could work out and take a look at. But we really need to pony up and try to land the one sure shot option. And that option is Young Hoku, 27-year-old South Korean kicker, Pro Bowler last year, 92.3% over the last 3 years, kicking field goal percentage, and steadily improving. So far this year, he's been perfect. He's only missed 4 out of 71 extra point attempts in his career. And he's perfect at that so far this year also. With the state of kicking in the league, this guy is going to be a hot commodity in free agency. But we definitely need him. This is one of those situations where we got to go old school Dan Snyder and get the guy. Get the guy. Pull out the stops and get the guy. Because the other options are this. You got Matt Gay, 27 years old. Looks like he's getting better, but not better than Dustin Hopkins as we stand. You got Josh Lambo, who, if he's healthy, yeah, he's great. He'd be one of our best options, but he has not been healthy in 2 seasons, and it's hip problems, folks. Hip problems for a kicker. And then the other potential option is Donald DeLahaye, destroying YouTube sensation. I don't know, folks. He makes some great videos, but I just don't know how he'd do in a big game situation. Those are 3 guys we could work out in case we can't get Koo. Koo is the target, though. Lambo, if Lambo's healthy, he's not bad. But it's it's long shot for him to be healthy. And these other guys are really long shots at the position compared to Dustin Hopkins. At this point, it's almost better to bring him back if you can't get Koo and if Lambo's not healthy. And that'd be fucking embarrassing. Now on to defense. Honestly, this side of the ball is playing way worse but I think it's just a few pieces away from it all coming together. I think this side of the ball should be the main focus of most of the draft, but there are definitely some free agents that could really help seal up the cracks. Now, I'm going to start out with a position that's letting us down badly this year, and that's free safety. Signing Bobby McCain instead of a guy like Trey Boston was a huge freaking mistake. Both are at the age that they're going to be short-term band-aids anyway. But, damn, McCain is awful. We want to sign young, productive players that, will be in their prime for the length of their contracts. So, last year, Marcus Williams was the perfect target. This is a guy I really want us to go after hard. But the Saints pulled some voodoo magic, even being $100 million over the cap. They somehow were allowed to franchise tag this guy. They're like, okay, we're going to give this guy a 1-year contract, making almost the most money at his position in the league, while we're over $100 million over the cap. It was ridiculous. I don't think they're going to be that lucky 2 years in a row. So, I think Marcus Williams will hit free agency. And he would be a great option, a great fit for the team. But he is going to cost a lot of money. And that alone, I think, we should pass. Especially because there's other options that will be close, if not better, and cheaper. Jesse Bates is right there with him also. He's going to be high demand, he's going to be high price, and he's one of the best free safeties in the NFL. Another guy, though, I think we should pass on. That leaves, my pick for the perfect guy to secure our safety position, Justin Reed. Free safety from the Texans. 24 years old. He's got elite top-end speed that these other guys don't have. Elite speed that showed off as a rookie when he took Alex Smith's pass 101 yards on a pick six the other way. He hasn't hit elite grading yet, but he was heading there in his first 2 years at free safety before being brought down as strong safety in the last 2 years and kind of throwing them all out of whack. On top of that, he's playing for the Texans, and that's a team even more dysfunctional than ours. This is a high-end to elite type talent that could help put us over the top, that we could help put him over the top. And we get him, and we don't need to worry for the next 5 years. Probably end up getting him for about $7 million or less a season, I think. And he's just that perfect blend of skill, age, fit, and price. On from that, that getting Justin Reed locks us up, seals everything down at free safety. We move on from that to the cornerback position, and we really miss badly on this year. William Jackson III just isn't a scheme fit at all. In my opinion, we need to cut our losses with him. By letting him go, we save $2 million on the cap from against his pay. Kendall Fuller isn't working out so well either. Now, I think as far as he's concerned, we should try to restructure to keep him as depth. But we got to be careful here. If we're looking to address the cornerback position, if we want to change things up to more man, it'd be possible to keep Jackson or to make some other move. If we're going to more man, there are some guys out there, some great options at free agency, like Marshawn Lattimore. is out there. If we're going to more man, then yeah, get him. I'm sure his Ohio State buddies here could help bring him on. But between Jackson and Fuller, we have a lot of money tied up in the secondary, so we have to make the right choices. And I think we got to get rid of Jackson. So, as far as making the right choices with our current scheme, there's one perfect fit for us, as the defense stands. And this is a guy that if you cut loose William Jackson III, you try to sign this guy at all pull out all the stops. And that's Carlton Davis, he'll only be 25 next year. Man, this man is super underrated. And that, could actually be huge for us. Now, it's going to be hard to pry him away from a possible back-to-back Super Bowl champ Tampa Bay squad. But this guy is the best zone cornerback in the NFL. He came out of college as a press man corner, and he has adapted beautifully to a zone scheme. And this year, before his injury, he was the best in the game, period, with a 25.2 passer rating allowed when in zone. Ben St. Juste looks like he's in a similar trajectory to him, and pairing them up, along with a great free safety over the top, could really give us a Legion of Boom type defense. I really think it could really set us up for the long run. With Cam Curl down low, putting Justin Reed over the top, Carlton Davis and Ben St. Juste, I really do think that it gets Legion of Boomy with a great front four. Another must-add piece that I think should be relatively cheap but hugely impactful would be adding quality nickelbacks. I thought, bringing Kendall Fuller back to the slot would boost his production, but that hasn't been the case. I don't think, we need to get rid of Fuller, but we definitely have to restructure his deal. If, keep him around for dime formations, which, we should be running a lot more of. And because of, in the current league, you need as many quality cornerbacks as you can get, we should try to hold on to them. But we need a dependable nickelback. And along with being great in coverage duties, one that excels against the run. I don't think there are a lot of guys that fit this, but there's a guy we should have signed last year. And there's another guy. I think we should sign both of these players because I think you need depth at that. If we're going to be running all this nickel, we don't just want one solid nickel back. We want to grab both these guys. And the first guy is Dante Jackson, who'll be 26. This is a guy that Ron drafted in 2018. And even at 5'10", 185, he's a guy that's held up very well at outside cornerback. But he has all the speed, ability and instinct that he could be an absolute force on the inside. This is a case where bringing over one of Ron's guys would actually boost the defense, unlike the guys that have found their way here so far. This is going to be a hard sell to make because, he'd be taking Kendall Fuller's place, and fans would probably get extra bent that it's a Carolina guy doing it. But I think he's just an upgrade in play and a cheaper contract. If we can get Fuller to restructure, then Jackson only takes his job. But, and then Fuller can keep a backup role. If we can't, then we got to let Fuller go, and he takes them both. And I think this guy is somewhere in the neighborhood of an $8 million cap hit, which I think is like roughly half of what Fuller's going to be this year. So, upgrade in little younger, a lot cheaper, and better performing. And I don't think the Panthers are going to be able to put up much of a fight. They already got 2 first-round pick cornerbacks on the roster. Then they got AJ Bouye, and then they got to worry about working out a contract for Stephon Gilmore. So I think we should have a pretty easy shot at them. And then must-have piece. It'd be nice to get these both, but this guy, for sure, we need to get Desmond King, 26-year-old nickelback. Desmond started out his career, filling in for an injured Jason Verrett. He just balled out. He was at 85.7 in his rookie season. He was a 90.5 the season after that. And then he had a bit of a down season at 70.9. And they traded him away to the Titans. And he went on to a struggling, banged-up secondary. He's playing out of position. They put him outside when he's not an outside guy. They put him in positions he wasn't good at. But you bring this guy to our team where we actually use what he's the most comfortable at. He's one of the most underrated players in the NFL, period. And he's a top-tier guy at a very specific role. And it's a role we're in great need of. Cover 3 zone nickel role fits everything Desmond is great to a T. And putting him next to Cameron Curl could make a perfect situation that we'd get those 80s and 90s grades out of him again. He's only 26. It's not like he's over the hill or anything. It's not like he's having some tremendous physical drop-off. He's being played out of position. He's a guy that's dominant against the run. Through the first 4 weeks of this season, he was grading 90.7 against the run. He was the second best corner in the league at it. He's basically a corner that has the mentality of a linebacker. He thinks, he knows how to play and react, everything just like a linebacker. He's a perfect nickelback. His contract is very cheap. We should have brought him in this year. At 26, he's got so much great football left in him. It's just a rare case where a perfect player has a very low price tag and he's available. And definitely we need to bring him in. Like, he got paid $3.5 million from the Texans this year. So he's actually having a bit of a down season, so we might be able to get him for the same or even a little less. Regardless, he needs to be in Washington. So we can't dispute the need for quality linebackers. Even if Jamin Davis develops into a quality starter and we commit to nickel, we need 2 quality linebackers so that Holcomb and Hudson become backup solid rotational pieces. So they're never carrying the weight of starting and being 3 down backs in this defense. Now I think, this is a great draft to possibly land coverage linebackers in the 2nd or 3rd round. But I think there are 2 guys that could still have a lot of potential to be huge upgrades and possibly secure, our linebacker position for years to come. Jalen Smith would have been a good addition, but I think he'll either stay with Green Bay or command a high enough price that it won't make sense for us. I also think, these other guys might fit us a bit better anyway. Last year, Jared Davis set the market price for the late first round pick linebacker that got their 5th-year option declined. And it's a very reasonable price. And we have two guys in the same situation that I like Jared Davis, but I think both these guys have quite a bit more potential than him. First off, Leighton Vander Esch. You guys might, have picked up my affinity for the linebacker position, and it might not surprise you that I had Leighton Vander Esch very high in the 2018 draft. I'm an absolute sucker for a 6'4", 240-plus pound linebacker with modern coverage skill set. I love that. Just like I was with Zaven Collins this draft, just like Zaven, Leighton Vander Esch got those Brian Urlacher comps. That's the type of linebacker Ron would love to get back. Leighton Vander Esch, has had some injuries hold him back, but when he's on the field, he is a special player. When fully healthy, he's got second team All-Pro, he's got a Pro Bowl nod, he had 87.5 PFF grades as a rookie, and in 2019 season, he missed time for neck surgery. And after fully recovering from that, he broke his collarbone last year. Now he's finally back fully healthy this season. And if he can make it through this season without any injury concerns, I think this guy should be one of our first targets. Like I alluded to with the Jared Davis situation, his price should be around $5 million. Like in the $5 million range. And that's a cheap price for what will be a huge upgrade at the linebacker position. As long as he's on the field and healthy, he's a huge steal. And at worst, it's only $5 million of cap space. That is nothing for the shot at the potential we have. The other player, Rashaan Evans, going to be 25. He was pegged as the next great Alabama linebacker coming out in the draft. And this guy did great work behind Allen and Payne in college. Came in as a late first round pick, and he hasn't lived up to that hype in the eyes of the Titans. But I think he's shown a solid ability against the run, along with athletic ability to carry pass coverage deep down the field, from the linebacker position. And he also works great from the zone, in zone coverage. He's shown some mental errors that, have led to inconsistencies that, have caused people to consider him a bit of a disappointment. But I think that's all stuff that could be coached up and fixed. And even with the inconsistencies, he still makes big plays in coverage and in the backfield. I think Ron and Jack could get him to a place where he's seeing the game faster and being a consistent playmaker at the linebacker position. I know since 2013, Washington football fans have thought about a lot of different guys that this guy is going to be the next London Fletcher. But I honestly think Evans could really be that guy. London Fletcher didn't really take off until 5 years into his career when he got to Buffalo. And then really like 4 years later when he got to us. This is the kind of thing where we get that London Fletcher kind of player the fifth year into his career. And we have him for a long time. I really think Rashaan Evans has got that kind of potential. He's being slept on, and he could definitely turn it around and be an all-pro linebacker with his physical gifts and his instincts. So that leaves us with our defensive players there. Free safety Justin Reed, cornerback Carlton Davis, cornerback / nickelback Dante Jackson, nickelback Desmond King, Leighton Vander Esch linebacker, Rashaan Evans linebacker. So all in all, we got Marcus Mariota, Mitch Trubisky, both at quarterback, Connor Williams at guard, Austin Corbett at guard / center, Cam Robinson, offensive tackle, Roderick Johnson, offensive swing tackle, wide receiver DJ Chark, tight end, probably OJ Howard, running back Matt Breida, running back Bo Scarborough, free safety Justin Reed, Carlton Davis cornerback nickelback Dante Jackson, nickelback Desmond King, linebacker Leighton Vander Esch, and Rashaan Evans. Sixteen players. We got 25 free agents leaving. These are 16 free agent signings that would completely change the complexion of this team. And that's I think that's what really needs to go down. There it is. Those are the moves that could turn this team around. Let me know what you guys think down below. Subscribe. And if you made it this long, I really do love you guys. Peace.